So I think that actually it's a bit of a false dichotomy. They're not the same thing at all. A DAC doesn't solve the problems which traditional companies were built to solve. So if you go back to when companies were originally created, limited liability companies anyway, um, they were designed because people were forming these groups, making businesses, losing a lot of money, and then finding themselves personally liable. So they said, well, we can't do business um, if we're still liable for the actions of the business. So we need this limited liability shield. So a traditional company is exactly that. It's designed to be a liability shield for running a business. It doesn't offer transparency. It doesn't offer accountability. It doesn't offer the ability to vote in and replace the organization itself. So I think they don't solve the same problem at all. It doesn't help to do cross-border businesses. If you want to do business with other people in different countries now on a small scale, it's very difficult. You know, it's almost impossible. And traditional companies don't solve that problem for you. Traditional companies don't allow you to have transparency in your organization. They don't allow the accounts to be automatically generated every year. They don't allow for you to vote in and out transparently the elected representatives of the company. So I think DACs add a huge amount more on top of the existing organizations that we've never had before. And yeah, it's the kind of things that if you're running on a blockchain, you need these things suddenly. It's not something we ever really needed before. So these are things that going forward are going to be essential, I think. So far it has been. That's exactly how we run it. We run a traditional company for the limited liability because we don't all want to be liable for any actions of the DAC. And then we also have to use the DAC stuff because we as eosDAC, we run on chain, and therefore we need something on chain to manage our security and to just manage the payments and everything in the business. So yeah, we do have to use both at the moment. Ideally, we shouldn't have to use the traditional organization as well. In an ideal world, the DAC itself would have that limited liability shield, but no governments so far have recognized the DAC yet. I mean, people just inherently, they want to collaborate together. They want to work together. And the internet's given us this ability to talk to people on the other side of the world, like you are now. So we can't just stop there and say, okay, we'll talk to you, but we'll never ever do business with you. And we'll never have this shared goal that we work together for. It's always going to be one-sided. But with a DAC, it can be completely fair and transparent. So I offer you one token, you give me one token, and then we start the DAC ourselves. We always have that right to the assets and the value within that company. It's almost impossible now, I'd say, that if you were a small business trying to work cross-border, then basically you have to choose one country, and then everybody else who's not in that country would suffer eventually. It's quite amazing that we can have these people from all over the world organizing together, making decisions together, and it's all utilized with the DAC technology. So it makes everything much easier, way more efficient. You know, if you look now at what you have to do to make a transfer from a company to another company, it can take you a long time and requires a single person to push the button on the account. So efficiency is a huge thing. I think any organization operating as a DAC is instantly going to get that efficiency boost. And then you get the transparency as well, so that you can essentially, all your reporting systems can be written from chain data, which means that you can, like I said, if you want to pull up a set of accounts for the particular year or the particular week, or you want financial estimates, they should all just be automated straight off the system. We have hundreds of different systems for the finances of a company. We'll have the bank account itself, we'll have accounting software, we'll have internal business software, and they're all running from different databases and doing different things. So it's actually very, very inefficient way to work when you're using finances. The banking system obviously is maybe 20 years behind where we are with crypto. Well, the first obstacle you get hit in the face with is the legal problems. So immediately that you say that you want to run this DAC, which is elected by token holders and is autonomous and run by smart contracts, you have legal problems. So we spent, I think, the first 8 months or so just on legal and business structures and trying to work out how we can put a DAC together and still be sort of legal and protected. I'll leave Saro again to discuss most of that, but yeah, that was a huge part. Next part is the technical challenges of running on a blockchain which has just been released and it's probably not 100% finished. Lots of things have been changed. Sometimes things are removed from underneath us. We always need to be thinking ahead. We always need to see what's going on chain now to see how that's going to influence us in 6 months' time. So, for example, the V1 history was a big problem, but I saw that the V1 history was huge and it was requiring a lot of resources. So it wasn't very, very sustainable. It wasn't very scalable. So I decided to start using the state history plugin, which was under development at the time, and therefore you have to deal with the kind of the new technology so that you're ready when it's ready, and you can sort of have a good path forward, and you don't have to suddenly stop if all the V1 history APIs die, which I feel is a big threat. And then the third thing I think is time. Everybody expects that you have the idea of a DAC and you want to put this thing together and it's going to be ready within 6 months, and suddenly everything is going to change. I think people need to understand that these things are very, very the basic levels. We've just about written sort of the core voting and the multi-sig and the permission systems and everything. So we now need to build on top of these. We need to build layers upon layers to make these things sophisticated. And people tend to think they're going to happen tomorrow, but they're not. They take time. So part of it is just communicating to people that we're working on things constantly, but it just takes a while to get the underlying layers correct before we can start building on top. Okay. So my main focus at the moment is to try to build an ecosystem of DACs whereby DACs can talk to each other and we can have many different tools for working with DACs. At the moment, we just have the eosDAC member client as kind of like a reference implementation for speaking to one of our DACs. But what I would like to do is allow for other people to write user interfaces, other people to write tools which will do reporting on DACs and do all kinds of different functions on DACs which aren't the kind of mainstream usage that we have now. So we need a consistent set of APIs which they can use. They need to know that if they build their system to work today, that we're not going to constantly keep changing. So again, we need to build a layer above the data which we have on the DAC now, and then allow that to be abstracted possibly for many different types of DACs, so that you can have explorers and other financial tools which are operating across many DACs. And then on top of that, what we need is better user interfaces. We need better tools that people are using. You know, for businesses, people have very, very sophisticated business planning tools like SharePoint and accounting software and everything. So we need to have many more ways to do this. And for that, we need the APIs. So yeah, I see that we're at the moment now, we're at a very, very core section of it, but we need to build the ecosystem around that. There's no point just having a DAC running by itself. It has to operate within this wider ecosystem.